We've had great conversations with some individuals from the National Wild Turkey Federation, and some of the projects that they have going on right now. We've talked to a lot of conservation organizations, a lot of people. Talk about hands-on. And something that I wanted to just touch on was a story we were talking about today was, in a weird way, if I was to describe the National Wild Turkey Federation, it's not just about putting new turkeys in the wild. It's not just about sustaining turkey populations. It's not just about that. It's almost as if the turkey, in its own way, is carrying the load for a lot of different very important variables, one of which we're talking about is a town in Wyoming.
It's far more bigger picture than people realize.
Right. It is. It's almost like they had 50 years to think outside the box.
Yeah.
But one of the projects that he was talking about was in Wyoming. So there's a small town in Wyoming that is like people travel from all over the world to come there to turkey hunt. Now, the town has about 3,000 people in it, and there's a sawmill there, and that is a majority of the economics for the entire city. It's the sawmill and the turkey hunting. Now, what actually makes what makes the economy drive there is the fact that all the tourists come to turkey hunt from all over the world, thousands and thousands of people every year. And they were talking about how sustainability of turkey populations in those specific areas are literally protecting those towns from going kaput. He said it's not a house of cards, but it's darn close, where you've got the turkey hunting, which is why everyone goes there and why everyone goes there to spend money. That fuels the entire economy for that entire town for the rest of the year. So if the turkeys go kaput there, the town's gone. You can call it quits for that town. So in those situations, they hyper-focus on those areas and keeping those turkey populations stable and doing conservation efforts to try and also protect those towns. It also goes into clean water, and they've impacted something like, was it 50? It was an insane amount of acreage they've impacted, and it was almost the size of South Carolina.
Well, in coordination with that city, town, village in Wyoming, is the sawmill. So turkeys live in the forest. They do a lot of work with like forest reclamation, making sure the forests stay healthy and that there's no wildfires to just burn the whole thing down. Because imagine what would happen to that sawmill if the forest burnt down. And when we do this podcast, I want to ask them a few more questions on their philosophy behind wildfires, because it's interesting. Some people are like, they're the best thing ever.
Yep.
But clearly,
your brother loves them. He sets them. No, I'm kidding.
No.
He doesn't. It's so funny though.
He sets them.
Great. Clearly, there's circumstances where maybe it's not so. Like, I don't know. I want to hear I want to know more science behind this.
How it's not good. That theory.
Well, I don't think that it's not good. I think it's just it's probably pretty geographically specific. And so if all that forest goes away, the turkeys go away, which makes up half the year of income, and then the other half is the logging. So
yeah, and touch a little bit, Ryan, because you're a little bit more of an expert on it than I, on the scenario, say in Michigan, where they've done clear cuts or they've done fires where it was like super beneficial.
Yeah. So for a while,
why is it beneficial?
It's kind of crazy how this whole thing works. Originally, what Michigan was doing was they were planting these pines everywhere, and if you drive up north, it's just like rows and rows and rows of pines where like you drive by it and it's like an optical illusion when you're going through the rows.
And if you go at the right time, you'll see Clark Griswold out there cutting one down.
But now, thankfully, the science has developed further, and clear cutting is much more prevalent. And there's people who don't know anything that think it's a bad thing, but it's not, because there are significantly more species that can survive in a clear cut versus older forests, like in the big hardwood forests. So it's something like 12 species can really survive well in older forests, whereas in the
younger
years after, not immediately after a clear cut, because immediately after there's nothing. There's just flat open ground. But in like year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little on further than that you have species just flourishing, where I think it's something like in the 80 species can really just do great in these. Whereas there's not any cover, there's not any small nooks and crannies for all these animals to hide in. There's not a lot of new growth for them to eat, and Michigan has really done a good job of creating new growth and replenishing the health of our upstate Michigan.
Yeah, so a piece of property that we own in Northwest Lower Peninsula, we had it's probably something like 100 acres of pine trees in the valley. And what we did was we went out and we actually clear cut all the pine trees out of there. And what grew up next the following year was popple. Now, popple grows pretty fast.
Yeah.
But young popple grew fast. We went out there and hunted it the very first year it grew. And this year, and we flushed 5 timberdoodle in there and would have gotten a lot more. We did without a dog.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine how many
without
ran
a
on
dog,
us.
that's pretty impressive.
I
And
don't-
you guys
what-
didn't spend a ton, like
We're out there at 45 minutes.
yeah. So that's pretty impressive.
It was insane. And I mean,
Cool thing about that too is that all is one root system. That's all technically one plant.
the popple is.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
How so?
It's all one.
I know you're right. Just kind of explain it.
Well, it's so. I think they call them.
They're the big girl of the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember what black raspberry plants operate the same way, where they rather than plant like dropping a seed and then a new growth happens next to it, what happens is the root grows and then sprouts up from the original plant, and that's essentially what's happening. Where there's this massive acreage of trees is just one system.
Just one tree all
Which
connected.
you'd be surprised actually how many forests are like that and how many plants are like that.
So is there one tree that's like the queen tree?
No, it's just kind of like they're all working.
It's like Scott's ex on Facebook. She just has a bunch of different profiles, but it's all one person.
yeah.
Probably too soon.
It's like it's like Avatar, where everything is in one.
I get it.
I don't know, what do they call it in that
Encompassing?
movie?
Yeah, it's all connected. It is fascinating. And I know that something with wildfires too is there's certain trees that have certain seeds that won't even grow until there's a fire, because the fire opens the seed so it can grow.
And that's kind of like a clear cut in a natural clear cut of itself, because now it's getting rid of all that the older trees, and it's killing them all off. Now those leaves are gone from the top
Canopy.
level. The canopy is gone, so that allows for new growth on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. You've just had a natural clear cut. So there's a
Deer,
reason-
animals, all kinds of things use the undergrowth as protection. They use it as food. They use it as all that. If you think of real tall pine trees and there's just a bunch of pine needles on the ground, there's not much there to be eaten.
Yeah.